Hey, curious minds, get ready for mind-blowing facts about animals, science, and more. From surprising talents to bizarre discoveries, this video is packed with fun you won't believe. Sit back, relax, and let's dive into the unexpected.
One of the most recognizable trademarks of Mr. T, besides his mohawk and gruff voice, was his massive collection of gold chains. But what many people don't know is that these weren't just flashy fashion statements or props from a jeweler. In fact, many of the chains Mr. T wore originally came from fans and customers when he worked as a nightclub bouncer and bodyguard. Back in the late 70s and early 80s, he worked in some rough Chicago clubs where fights and altercations were common. After scuffles, he would often collect jewelry left behind or lost during the chaos, especially chains and other gold items. Rather than keep them in storage or discard them, he began wearing them as a way to make a statement, and it quickly became part of his larger-than-life image. Mr. T has said that the chains symbolized the struggles and status of the people he worked around, and he wore them almost like a badge of honor, paying homage to the environments he came from. Eventually, when he became a household name thanks to roles like B.A. Baracus in the A-Team and Rocky III, the gold chains became his signature look. At one point, the value of the chains he wore was estimated to be over $300,000. However, in a sign of personal respect and responsibility, after Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005, Mr. T stopped wearing the chains publicly, saying it felt inappropriate to flaunt wealth when so many were suffering. So while his gold chains might seem like pure bling, they actually carried a deep connection to his roots, his fans, and his personal code of honor.
Michael Jackson composed music for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Yes, the King of Pop really did work on music for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, but it was shrouded in secrecy for years. Back in the early 1990s, Michael Jackson was a huge fan of video games, and he had a working relationship with Sega. In fact, Sega had previously collaborated with him on the Moonwalker arcade and console games. When Sonic 3 was in development, Jackson was brought on board to compose tracks for the game, working alongside his team of musicians including Brad Buxer, a longtime collaborator and keyboardist. However, things took a turn when Michael Jackson was accused of child molestation in 1993, right around the time Sonic 3 was nearing completion. Sega, fearing public backlash, reportedly decided to distance the game from Jackson and removed his name from the credits. According to some reports, there was also dissatisfaction on Jackson's end with how the music sounded through the Genesis sound chip. He didn't want to be associated with what he considered low-quality audio output. But here's where it gets interesting. While Sega denied his involvement for years, numerous fans and music experts noticed similarities between tracks in Sonic 3 and Jackson's musical style. For example, the Ice Cap Zone theme bears a strong resemblance to a track Buxer co-wrote with Jackson called Hard Times. Other in-game tunes have been linked to songs like Stranger in Moscow, which came out after Sonic 3, suggesting MJ may have recycled unused music. In 2009, Brad Buxer confirmed that Jackson had indeed worked on the music for Sonic 3. Over time, several team members and developers also corroborated the story. So even though his name never appeared in the game credits, Michael Jackson's signature sound is embedded in Sonic 3's DNA. It's one of those fascinating intersections of gaming and pop culture that fans still geek out about to this day.
From the very beginning, Breaking Bad aimed to get the science as close to reality as possible, especially since the story centered around Walter White, a high school chemistry teacher who turns to cooking methamphetamine. To make this credible, series creator Vince Gilligan brought in real chemistry experts to consult on the scripts, the lab setups, and the terminology used throughout the show. One of the most well-known consultants was Dr. Donna Nelson, a chemistry professor from the University of Oklahoma. She volunteered her expertise to help ensure that the show's scientific aspects were as accurate and understandable as possible. Dr. Nelson reviewed scripts and provided feedback on the chemical processes depicted in the show, suggesting real reactions, correcting terminology, and even helping with lab safety practices. She worked closely with the writers to make sure that even when the show bent reality for drama, it still respected the boundaries of what was scientifically plausible. For example, while the exact purity of Walter's blue meth, a whopping 99.1%, is more symbolic than realistic, The chemistry behind many of the methods and materials he uses is rooted in truth. Nelson also helped actors understand the reactions they were mimicking, so they could appear convincing in their roles. Of course, the show didn't always stick strictly to reality. There were times when scientific accuracy was sacrificed for the sake of plot or cinematic effect, like the infamous scene where Walt uses fulminated mercury to create a dramatic explosion. In real life, this wouldn't have worked quite as cleanly or dramatically, but it was grounded in an actual chemical compound. The goal was never to create a how-to guide, but to present enough accurate science that the story felt believable without being bogged down by complexity. Interestingly, the show's commitment to chemistry even sparked increased interest in science among viewers. Teachers reported students becoming more engaged in chemistry classes, asking questions about reactions they saw on the show. Dr. Nelson herself said she was pleased that Breaking Bad helped bring science into pop culture in a new, albeit dark way. The show didn't glamorize meth production. It used science as a storytelling tool to explore morality, ambition and identity. Thanks to its consultants and sharp writing, Breaking Bad achieved a rare feat in Hollywood, making chemistry thrilling, terrifying and emotionally powerful, all at once.
The launch of MTV marked a seismic shift in the music industry. On August 1st, 1981, at 12:01 a.m., the world witnessed the birth of a new era in music entertainment. This wasn't just another television channel. It was a revolution that would forever change how we consumed music. Video Killed the Radio Star made history. When MTV launched on August 1st, 1981, at 12:01 a.m., the very first music video it aired was Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. It wasn't just a catchy, synth-heavy song from the late 70s. It was a bold, almost prophetic choice. The song's message was all about how video and technology were changing the landscape of music, effectively eclipsing the golden age of radio. So when MTV, an entire television channel dedicated solely to music videos, chose that track to launch its new platform, it sent a clear, self-aware message. Music was entering a brand new era. The significance of Video Killed the Radio Star cannot be overstated. It symbolized the dawn of a new age, where visual elements became just as important as the music itself. This song encapsulated the transformative power of technology and set the stage for the future of the music industry. Interestingly, Video Killed the Radio Star wasn't chosen randomly. The founders of MTV, including Robert Pittman, wanted something symbolic to represent the network's disruptive arrival. The song, originally released in 1979, had been a moderate hit in the US, but was much bigger in the UK. Its futuristic lyrics, vintage video aesthetics, and theme of media evolution perfectly captured what MTV was about to do, revolutionize how music was consumed. Suddenly, music wasn't just about how it sounded, but how it looked. Image and personality were about to become as important as the music itself. The launch of MTV marked a seismic shift in the music industry. Artists who embraced the visual medium flourished, while those who didn't adapt struggled to maintain their popularity. It was a new era where the screen was just as important as the stage. By leading with that song, MTV signaled that it wasn't just a music platform, it was a cultural force. Overnight, artists who were visually compelling, like Madonna, Michael Jackson and Prince, gained an edge over those who weren't. The music video became not just a promotional tool, but an art form. And it all started with a quirky British band and a synth-pop track that predicted the future. What's even more wild, the Buggles themselves didn't become MTV superstars. Despite being the first face of the channel, they remained more of a one-hit wonder. In a way, they too were victims of the very media shift they sang about. Today, Video Killed the Radio Star is more than just a fun fact. It's a cultural milestone. It marked the beginning of the music video boom, which would dominate the 80s and early 90s. It also represents a time when the industry was radically shifting, something we've seen again with streaming platforms and social media. And although MTV eventually moved away from music videos, that first broadcast moment still resonates. It was bold, ironic, and brilliant, proof that sometimes pop culture really does understand its own impact in real time.
At the height of his fame in the 1910s and 1920s, Charlie Chaplin was the face of silent film comedy. His iconic character, the Tramp, with the bowler hat, toothbrush mustache, cane, and waddling walk, became instantly recognizable all over the world. So recognizable, in fact, that lookalike contests started popping up, especially in the United States, where fans would compete to see who could best mimic Chaplin's character. It was meant to be fun and flattering, and it inspired one of the most ironic stories in entertainment history. According to Chaplin's own account and several stories that circulated for decades, he once entered one of these contests incognito, without revealing his identity, just for fun. The exact date and location have been debated. Some sources say San Francisco, others say a theater in California during a local fair, but the story goes that Chaplin genuinely wanted to see how he stacked up against imitators impersonating, well, him. Here's the punchline: he didn't even make it to the finals. In fact, depending on the version of the story, he either placed third or didn't place at all. The judges reportedly felt that his walk wasn't exaggerated enough, or that he lacked certain exaggerated features that imitators had leaned into. It's not hard to believe. Performers in contests often amp up gestures for theatrical effect, while the real Chaplin played the Tramp with more subtlety and nuance. Ironically, it may have been his authentic performance that made him lose in a sea of over-the-top imitators. Chaplin himself supposedly found the whole situation amusing rather than offensive, and it speaks volumes about his humility and sense of humor. Whether or not all the details are perfectly accurate, the story has endured for over a century as a symbol of how fame, image, and perception can take on lives of their own. The idea that someone could be so famous that even they couldn't convincingly be themselves, that's comedy gold, and a reminder that even legends sometimes blend into their own shadows.
The Rock takes selfies seriously. In 2015, during the London premiere of his disaster movie San Andreas, Dwayne Johnson decided to do something a little extra for fans and ended up smashing a world record in the process. With the help of Guinness World Records officials, Johnson set out to take the most selfies in 3 minutes. And we're not talking casual, blurry crowd shots. Guinness has very specific rules. Each selfie had to be clearly focused, include full faces of both the Rock and the fan, and follow proper selfie framing standards. It was selfie hustle at the highest level. A crowd, a camera, and a clock. Fans lined up by the dozens for their moment with the Rock, who moved through the crowd with precision, flashing his signature grin and capturing selfies as quickly as humanly possible. Under the pressure of a ticking timer and strict judging, he ended up taking a staggering 105 selfies in just 3 minutes, averaging a photo roughly every 1.7 seconds. Guinness World Records verified the count on the spot and officially recognized him as the new record holder. The Rock's record-breaking energy. What made this so fitting is that Dwayne Johnson has always been about connecting with his fans. This record wasn't just about setting a quirky benchmark. It reflected how much he values interacting with his audience. And naturally, he shared the moment and plenty of the selfies online, giving his fans some major bragging rights. As legacy in the digital age. Although the selfie record has since been challenged by other celebrities like Donnie Wahlberg and James Smith, Johnson's accomplishment still holds a special place in Guinness lore because of the scale, fan energy, and his celebrity status at the time. It's a modern kind of world record, one that could only exist in the age of front-facing cameras and social media. But leave it to The Rock to turn something as ordinary as taking selfies into an official, historic achievement, smiling, snapping, and setting records. Just another day in the life of Dwayne Johnson.
The Night's Watch, the grim, black-clad guardians of the wall, are known for their rugged, practical look. Thick, fur-lined cloaks were a crucial part of their costume, designed to sell the harshness of life in the frozen north. But as epic and high-budget as Game of Thrones became, the costume department still had to get creative, especially in the early seasons when the budget wasn't yet massive. So, in true resourceful fashion, they turned to an unlikely source, IKEA. It turns out that IKEA's Skold sheepskin rugs were just the right texture and weight to mimic thick fur cloaks. The costume team bought them in bulk, cut them up, dyed them darker and distressed them to look like worn, battle-hardened outerwear. The rugs cost a fraction of what real fur or custom fabric might have, and once transformed, they blended perfectly into the show's gritty aesthetic. The best part, you would never guess watching the show that those cloaks began life on someone's living room floor. When this detail was revealed during a costume design panel hosted by the Getty Museum in 2016, fans went wild. The revelation went viral almost instantly. Even IKEA jumped in on the fun. They released a cheeky DIY guide showing customers how to turn their own rugs into Night's Watch-style cloaks. It was a brilliant example of how creativity and thriftiness can still thrive in a big-budget production, and how one of the most epic fantasy shows in television history was built on more than just CGI and dragons. This IKEA rug moment is a great reminder of the incredible work that goes on behind the camera. The costume department, led by Michelle Clapton, who also worked on The Crown, consistently delivered historically rich, believable looks that help define each house and region in Westeros. Turning home goods into fantasy fashion is no small feat, and it shows just how much movie magic happens through craftsmanship, not just money. So next time you see Jon Snow brooding on the wall, just know he's probably wrapped in a living room rug.
The record holder for the longest movie ever made is a Swedish experimental film titled Logistics, created by Erika Magnusson and Daniel Andersson. It was completed in 2012 and has a total runtime of 857 hours, or 35 days and 17 hours, non-stop. But this isn't your average cinematic experience. It's more of a conceptual art piece than a narrative film. The creators weren't aiming to entertain in a conventional sense. They were making a statement about modern consumerism, production, and the invisible infrastructure that drives our global economy. But this isn't your average cinematic experience. It's more of a conceptual art piece than a narrative film. The creators weren't aiming to entertain in a conventional sense. They were making a statement about modern consumerism, production, and the invisible infrastructure that drives our global economy. The premise is deceptively simple. The film follows the entire journey of a pedometer from its point of sale all the way back through the supply chain to the factory where it was made in Bao'an, China. The premise is deceptively simple. The film follows the entire journey of a pedometer from its point of sale all the way back through the supply chain to the factory where it was made in Bao'an, China. But here's the twist, it's all filmed in real time. That means long uncut sequences of transport, handling, shipping and production. There are scenes showing cargo on trucks, ships moving through ports, time in storage and factory workers at their stations. The camera observes, but it doesn't comment, making viewers confront the sheer scale and monotony of the global logistics system. Watching Logistics isn't really about following a story, it's about immersing yourself in time and process. The creators were inspired by the question, where do gadgets come from? Watching Logistics isn't really about following a story, it's about immersing yourself in time and process. The creators were inspired by the question, where do gadgets come from? Instead of answering with a slick documentary, they responded with a durational meditative experience that forces viewers to literally feel the length of the journey. It challenges traditional storytelling and attention spans, and it's often categorized more as a piece of performance or installation art than mainstream cinema. Due to its extreme length, Logistics has mostly been shown in segments at art installations, film festivals, or via continuous projection in museums and galleries. It has been described as a slow film in the most literal sense, testing the patience of even the most committed viewers. It's not something you watch in one sitting or even in 10. Due to its extreme length, Logistics has mostly been shown in segments at art installations, film festivals, or via continuous projection in museums and galleries. It has been described as a slow film in the most literal sense, testing the patience of even the most committed viewers. It's not something you watch in one sitting, or even in 10, but its impact lies in its ambition. It's a monument to time, process, and the often unseen systems behind the things we consume every day.
Holy safety campaign, Batman. In the 1960s, as seatbelt laws and car safety awareness were just beginning to take off, public service announcements, PSAs, started popping up to encourage drivers and passengers to buckle up. One of the more memorable ones came from none other than Batman, specifically the version played by Adam West in the campy beloved Batman TV series that ran from 1966 to 1968. This wasn't the dark, brooding vigilante of later decades. This was the colourful, quip-slinging, law-abiding caped crusader who taught kids to do their homework and eat their vegetables. So naturally, he was tapped to promote seatbelt use too. In the PSA, Batman and Robin, Burt Ward, are seen rushing to the Batmobile for another crime-fighting adventure. As Robin excitedly starts the car, Batman stops him, not to check the Bat gadgets but to put on his seatbelt. Safety first, Robin. The message is clear, simple and humorous, playing off the character's wholesome image and the era's increasing concern with auto safety. The spot ends with a reminder to the audience, if even Batman won't drive off without buckling up, what's your excuse? This PSA worked because it blended entertainment with public safety messaging in a way that felt light-hearted, but still effective. Batman wasn't lecturing. He was leading by example, using his cool factor and moral code to model good behavior. At a time when many drivers still didn't consider seatbelts a priority, and some cars didn't even have them installed by default, this kind of cultural reinforcement helped normalize the idea that wearing a seatbelt was the responsible, and even heroic thing to do. This wasn't the last time superheroes were used for public service campaigns. Over the decades, comic book characters have championed everything from anti-drug efforts to environmental causes. But the Batman seatbelt PSA stands out because of its simplicity and charm. It's been rediscovered and shared countless times online, becoming a nostalgic touchstone for both safety advocates and Batman fans. It's also a reminder that even the most extraordinary heroes care about everyday actions. And sometimes, saving lives starts with something as small as a click.
The Simpsons first aired in 1989, making it the longest-running American scripted TV series ever. That longevity has given its writers countless opportunities to joke about politics, technology, celebrities, science, and society. But what makes the show truly fascinating is how many of those jokes, sometimes throwaway gags, ended up coming true. From tech developments to political events, some of the show's moments feel like they were lifted straight out of the future. The most iconic one? Donald Trump becoming president. In the 2000 episode, Bart to the Future, Lisa mentions inheriting a budget crisis from President Trump. It was meant as a ridiculous punchline at the time, but 16 years later it became reality, another eerie one. In 2012, The Simpsons showed a scene where Disney buys 20th Century Fox. And guess what happened in 2019? Yep, Disney bought Fox in real life. The show also predicted things like smartwatches, video calls, autocorrect fails, and even Higgs boson-like equations on chalkboards years before scientists confirmed them. The writers of The Simpsons have addressed this phenomenon, and most agree it's a mix of smart forecasting and the law of large numbers. When a show runs for over 30 years, makes hundreds of cultural jokes and hypothetical scenarios, some are bound to hit the mark eventually. But what makes it stand out is how specific some predictions have been. Not just general trends, but precise events and inventions. That's what keeps people fascinated and a little spooked. Ultimately, The Simpsons serves as a snapshot of our hopes, fears, and absurdities over time. It doesn't just predict, it reflects. Its ability to nail trends is a testament to the sharpness of its writers and their understanding of the world's direction. Whether it's forecasting censorship debates, political instability, or virtual reality tech, the show's track record has made fans constantly ask, what did The Simpsons say about this? It's not magic, it's satire at its sharpest.
Thank you for watching. We hope these mind-blowing facts left you amazed and inspired. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell because there's plenty more where that came from. Stay curious and we'll see you in the next one.